Hey guys.
What up, Bryan? Steve?
Hey.
Hey.
So we're gonna listen to something interesting today, if that's all right with you guys. It's Scroobius Pip with Dan Le Sac.
You
You
have
heard me.
introduced me at one
Scroobius Pip.
point to Scroobius Pip.
Pip. Pip.
Pip.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe it was during our music video class. I don't remember.
Probably.
But
Yes. Probably. Yes. So and Steve, I don't
I, on
you
the
have
other
not
hand,
heard
have
him
never
before
been
or them
introduced.
to Scroobius Pip.
I have not
Okay.
had the pleasure.
All
But
right. So this is a
but I love
lyric
the name.
video.
So
I'll send
off
you
to a
the
good start.
lyrics afterwards. But yeah, but this is just a lyric video. And here we go.
You are my new inspiration, my muse. And I mean that not as a compliment. I will use you to cruise through any writer's block, any lazy days when a glazed gaze invades my mind's cave of creativity. I will think of you and what you did to me. I will take negativity and make it inspire me. I was not a book from a library. As I stand here alone, I declare I was not alone, to be picked up and dropped off at a later date. And you barely even made my spine bend. Just skimmed through some of the interesting bits, then skipped to the end. The notes you left in my margins turned from scribbles to scars, but here's the best part. You didn't even realize you were reading the first draft of a bestseller, the manuscript of a future Nobel Prize winner. This book you discarded as a pamphlet will ignite shit. I will work 10 times harder than before. I will create art. I will create beauty. I will create so many things that you can't ignore. But I will not do them in your name. I will not shout you from the rooftops. I will type your name out in Morse code on my outer thigh as I casually accept plaudits from on high. I will not try to win you back. I do not want you back. I just want to show you. I just need to show you what you fucking walked away from. I will achieve all my goals tenfold. I will achieve your goals too, casually. I will have happiness and joy in my life. I will fall in love, husband, child and wife. I will shine brighter than I could ever have dreamed to be. And you will see me. And you will see me. I will make rivers run red in your anonymity. The screams of nations will echo our affinity. My wrath will be relentless. My path of destruction will be momentously momentous. I will change the face of history and paint it in my likeness. And I will like this. I will destroy everything that you hold dear by simply destroying everything, far and near. My footsteps will be impossible not to hear. I will watch you from afar and taste each tear. I will wipe out entire races. I will erase faces and displace with great haste and no graces.
There you go.
Wow.
Just sent you the lyrics.
All right. This sounds like the making of a dictator or something like that.
That's funny that's a very similar thought that I had as
Yeah.
well. Yep. Yep. Oh, you disappeared, Matt.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, I was looking at the lyrics.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so it starts off making me sounding like an angry art school student,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just that was someone wronged by their art professors. Not that I could relate. Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it really switches from a sympathetic character pretty quickly. Then I started thinking Syndrome from The Incredibles.
Ah, yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yep.
When you say, like frustrated art student, I'm reminded of Hitler because wasn't he an art student who didn't like go very far and then became this guy?
You know, if only Hitler had a compassionate painting instructor, it would have changed world history. We might
Hey.
have we might have paid for it with some really bad paintings, you know, but
Mm-hmm.
but think of all the lives that would have been saved. And yeah,
So as creative people,
Wow.
have you two ever used negativity as inspiration or as something to make push you to make stuff?
Yes. I right after college, I wrote a musical comedy show and had booked a 45 show tour around the country with it. And I was told by someone like a mentor who I trusted that it was like doomed that we wouldn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
um, because it's hard. It wasn't. It was. I think trying to speak truth, not trying to speak down.
Mm-hmm.
You know. But I certainly use that as like
Motivation.
motivation. Yeah, I was never like angry or anything like that. I didn't have a response like this dude. But I use it as motivation to basically just say, "Nah, we're going to be successful. This is going to work." And it turned out to be good. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
we met all of our goals, and then some.
so I think for me, I try to use the content in my art is definitely fueled by some negativity, some reaction to, how I feel strongly about some things. But I've tried in my artwork, not so much in my conversation, but in my artwork, to turn that into something positive, to
Mm.
to try to sift through what it was that pissed me off so much, why I felt like I was wronged, right?
Hmm.
So there's at the core of this is a sense of righteous indignance, right? Like clearly he wasn't seen. He talks at one point about being that future Nobel Peace Prize winner, which goes on to make me think that that probably wasn't going to happen. But um,
As he destroys whole races.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But in that sense of in that sense of being wrong, that righteous indignance, which I can easily fall into, there is a right that has been violated, or there's a correction that needs to take place. And so I'd like to think that in the work that I make, at least certain pieces that are more thematic, um, I'm going after that. Like, what if it was done well? What if it was done right? You know, and then try not to think. It's funny because then in talking about it, it's easy to dip into the negativity, but I'm trying to keep that
Right.
conversation out of my work just because I know how prone I am to it in my conversation. So,
Hmm.
Yeah, I've definitely been motivated by negativity, and yeah, funny you said art school because that popped into mind right away. Getting negative feedback, and if I felt it wasn't like, I had a professor who told me basically I would never make a living drawing cartoons, and not to put any of them in any of my work, and that just made me do that on purpose even more. Um, which there's a good side to that because that's what I love to do and that's what I like to do. But then I was also doing it to kind of piss him off,
Hmm.
which it did. Um, but
so
yeah,
mission
it's like,
accomplished. I,
yeah,
on
so
on two
mission
levels, right?
accomplished. Yeah, yeah. Um, but I think if I was trying to do cartoons always to piss people off that I thought had wronged me,
Hmm.
that wouldn't have ended well either.
I don't know,
So
man. That could be some pretty dark, amazing work, Brian. Like a whole,
yeah, yeah, and I'd be swimming in it all the time.
yeah, yeah.
I actually was that teacher once, maybe more than once. Who knows, right?
Yep.
We could have we could have had a we could all have dozen former students who are doing work against us or in spite of us or something.
Oh, wait till the comments.
But
Wait till the
I rem
comments start coming in, Matt.
That's
right.
true. If any former students see this,
But I remember it was early in teaching. I was very young, and I made a comment to a student who was quitting a project, and I said, "Look, you'll never be able to do this as a career if you start by just if you give up too easy, if you keep quitting. And I don't want you to get into that habit." But all the student heard was, "You'll never do this as a career,"
mm,
and it created this real challenging divide. We were able to work it out, um, and I was super grateful that it didn't completely destroy the relationship, but it made a major shift, that I really regretted. Um, and they actually achieved lots of their goals, and I got to celebrate that with and for them. But uh, it was shocking to me how something I said, where I just wasn't careful with my words, um,
yeah,
had such
one
yeah,
little
it
thing
made
can.
a huge impact on this person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Um, I felt terrible. It's one of those like huge learning experiences of my life, and certainly a regret, but I'm grateful that I did learn from it.
yeah,
So I had, as long as we're talking about art school experiences, um, I we would get these reviews every semester. We didn't get grades. You bring, and actually, I think it's a pretty good system. You bring all your work into a room and you show it. And I had a horrible semester, and I put up like six self-loathing self-portraits that I have somewhere. My wife still teases me about it, but the two reviewers that semester were a painting instructor and a drawing instructor that were kind of the most articulate, tallest men in the school. Like they were kind of really well known for speaking their mind and their sheer mass. And the two of them spent my review because there wasn't much artwork to look at. They spent my review arguing amongst each other as to whether I was a schlock as an animator or a poet. That I was like one really wanted to all his students to sort of move art history forward to that next level, right? And he in his eyes I was clearly a schlock, right? And then the other was like, no, Steve's working from this place that's trying to, he's trying to find himself in words to express and images, and I think he's a poet. And I just remember taking score, like, oh yeah, good point for the schlock. Yeah, yeah, you might be right. No, 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 no. I could be a poet, you know. So it's fascinating to sort of take myself out of that, and I was already in a
Yeah.
pretty weird space, but it was to 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 have two versions of myself on display being sort of
Mm.
battled out in front of me was yeah, it was pretty interesting and an interesting context to sort of find yourself in. Um, definitely
Hmm.
not the. I'm definitely more the poet than the schlock. I'll own that one.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Um, as we're listening to this thing and I'm reading the words, I'm wondering, like, I think that this doesn't. Well, I'm sure you guys would agree. This isn't only about artists, of course. It's a story about an artist. But um, I wonder how often I take something small and let it sort of fester. You know, like a tiny little splinter under the skin that I don't get out, that like gets infected and just keeps getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And I wonder how often I take something, you know, the phrase making a mountain of a molehill. Like, I wonder how much I get consumed. You can feel the how this person is being consumed by this anger or frustration or whatever it is that is sort of the
Yeah.
feeling at the heart of all this. But I wonder how alike I am to this person, just in the sense of letting these emotions that don't need to be this big rise to this
Right.
level of overwhelmingness.
I would say definitely you haven't let it grow as far as this person did. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
yeah. I don't know.
But this
yeah,
person
I
could
see.
still.
I know
Yeah,
exactly what you're
yeah.
saying because I think yeah, and you know that kind of sickens everything else.
Well, and even in the lyrics though, like he's the guy. It seems like it's I will, I will, I will. This could be 5 minutes after, you know, the bad thing that happened, and it just got more and more and more and more because everything is just and I will and I will and I will.
Yeah.
Um. So I mean, it doesn't mean that at least in this story, we don't know how much time has passed.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
uh,
As you read through it, it's like, man, okay. Oh, it's getting a little worse. Oh, it's getting a little worse. Oh, it got really, really bad. Uh,
the world will become my plaything.
yeah. Like, yeah, it goes, I just want to show you. I just need to show you what you fucking walked away from. I will achieve my goals, blah, 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 blah. I will have happiness and joy in my life. You will see me. I will make rivers run red in your anonymity. Whoa. Okay.
Well, and early on
Okay.
though, doesn't you know? He's like, "I'm done with you," right?
Right.
Where's that line? He's like, you know, like you're out of my life, and I right, but everything that this person is completely trapped and beholden to this, you know. And the thing is, whoever wronged him probably can't even remember who he is. Like,
Right.
right? Was that? Did I bump into you in the street and like say something or right? But it's
Yeah.
changed.
Or I wrote a review of one of 100,000 and I don't even remember
Yeah,
writing it.
but
Yeah.
it changed the trajectory of this guy's entire life. Um,
Uh,
but you know, back to your
What's that?
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say that it reminds me of that what's that saying? Letting somebody live in your head rent free.
Yeah,
Um,
this is it.
yeah. Yep.
This is
right.
it. You know, Matt, you brought up this feels like a dictator, right? The making of a
Hmm.
megalomaniac, and
Hmm.
and it all kind of revolves around this last line. He says, "You will see me," right? If had this person felt seen at the very beginning
Right.
and valued. right, and listened to, or and acknowledged, boy, they could have saved him and the world a lot of grief. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you know, not to slip too quickly into politics, but been thinking a lot these last couple of weeks about how hard it is to understand what's going on in the right, and the sort of the level and the volume of anger and resentment coming from, in this case, a community of people that raised me on completely different concepts. And what does it take to get that, um, to get you into that place, right? And I I do think it's coming from a place of not being seen, of feeling like you've been completely marginalized, made fun of. I mean, all of us as part of the faith community, I'm sure, felt some of that growing up,
Mm-hmm.
that you were just, you didn't belong, you weren't one of the cool whatever. But I feel like the resentment that's grown out of that is shaped our political environment right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, as I'm watching this, or as I'm reading through this, I'm reminded of, like, in narrative, there's usually like this thing with a character that like launches them on their journey, right? And oftentimes it's something that's moving actually in a positive direction. So at the beginning, I will take negativity and make it inspire me. That's sort of this idea. But what happens is the strength that the character has, like in writing and in character development, oftentimes the strength that the character has becomes their fatal flaw. You know, like the guy who loves the sports team so bad that he's at the game and can't control himself, and when something negative happens or someone from the opposing team says something, they just snap and do something that's entirely not, really attuned to who they normally are.
Mm-hmm.
But that it's that just that idea that like there's this thing that at this level is like good, but when it crosses to this level, it turns a corner. And so he goes from I will take negativity and make it inspire me to I will burn this entire world to the ground. And it's like,
Well,
I think you've become negativity.
yeah, and all in service of being seen, right? Right? Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
you didn't notice it.
Yeah.
I will. That's why that syndrome character stands out, right? They wanted to be a superhero,
Right.
got dissed by a
Mm-hmm.
superhero. Now going to put an
Mm-hmm.
end to all superheroes. You will bow to me, but
That. Yeah. One thing that came to mind as I was listening to it too was, or just like this video that I'd watched was this. I don't know if you guys saw this, but it was like a correspondence dinner or something with Barack Obama talking, and he and Trump was in the audience, and he made some jokes about Trump, and Trump just kind of, you could just see him looking at it, and he was pissed, but he was also like, "Oh yeah, I'll show you. I'll show you.
well,
You're gonna regret that."
Seth Meyers
And
to this day owns Trump's candidacy for president, right? Because
yeah,
do you remember that performance? Oh
No.
no, Seth Meyer was hosting the Correspondence Center, and and had some very pointed jabs at Trump. Same thing.
Hmm.
Camera shifts,
yep.
and he was not happy. He was not happy.
Oh yeah.
And Trump was absolutely the butt of the kind of the liberal elite, you know,
Hmm.
in New York, um, and now he's come so far. He's come so far. Everybody
Yeah,
sees him.
he's approaching the last third of this song.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of amazing the echo chamber we find it, like any individual, right? It's so easy to get trapped in. in that. That is your world, right?
Yeah.
Bryan, I remember talking with you a few years back because I never really got into video games. My thing was pinball, so it was a little bit different. But you were telling me how you, you had a time in your life where you were just constantly playing video games, and even when you weren't playing video games, you were playing video games, right? Like your mind was
I was
constantly,
running through them in my head.
exactly.
Yep.
And it makes me think of like this is the world that this person lives in. Like no matter what happens, they're gnawing on that bone. They're sort of picking it apart. They're re-examining it. They're like, it's like doesn't matter. They could be hanging out with their family on the beach, apparently having the time of life. But inside that, those wheels are turning, and
They're like, oh, I'm gonna get him.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, yeah. Or you get like, yeah. And I've had thoughts of, like I've had an argument or somebody pissed me off or something, and then days later, I'm still figuring out what I'm going to say to them the next time I see them, or how am I going to talk to them about this, or how am I going to refute their argument, or come back at them with this. It's like
I've even been in the kitchen and like it came out audibly, like I spoke the word, like because there was so much in it in my head, and like my wife's in the other room, she's like, "What did you say?" And I'm like,
"Excuse me,
nothing.
you want me to what?"
It's usually a little more subtle than that. Yeah.
Well, so at a similar note, maybe less negative, but definitely as kind of all encompassing, I have found myself the last few years in my head in dialogue with certain mentors or people that I've respected growing up in the church, and wanting to sort of like have a discussion with them about what is going on. How could this be? Please explain to me, right? And so there is that dialogue that's kind of always going on. It's less intense and it's less fueled by anger, but there's a maybe like the video game analogy, there's a puzzle aspect to it that I just want to figure it out. And there are some people that have been good to me, have reached out to me, and some of them are no longer with us. Like my mom is no longer with us. I would love to sit down with my mom, who was a very devout woman, cared very much for her neighbors, and changed over the course of her life because of the people she met. And I would love to sit down with her and just like talk to me. What?
How is this happening?
How is this happening? And how do you square this with, she might lean in and go, "Damn straight." I don't know. It's driving me. I would hope. But yeah, that stuff will keep you up at night, though.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing that's interesting is I can imagine my grandparents who did live through World War II and like seeing a lot of, autocracy with Hitler, Mussolini, and Soviet Union and stuff. I can imagine a lot of them saying, "Hey, we really need to be thinking clearly. We need to be aware of what's going on. We need to see the signs that like things are changing or whatever." But we're a generation, that's my grandparents, right? So we're a generation maybe removed a little bit from that. I don't know how old your mom was, Steve, but, my folks were baby boomers born right after World War II. And I don't, because they didn't live through that war, they lived through the Cold War, but that was different. Like the Cold War was sort of going from bad to better or something like that in their mind. I think that maybe we're a generation removed from being able to really clearly see like, oh no, these are warning signs. We need to be.
Well, that's why history
we need to be careful.
Right?
Yeah. You just have to let enough time pass.
Yeah.
Yep. You let enough time pass, and people are have the same issues and the same flaws and same tendencies, and they start doing it again.
Yeah. But So on that note, we were just in the Baltics, and got a chance to talk to a lot of people there, and they're watching, and the world's watching,
Oh,
and they're
yeah.
watching from a very precarious position, right? I mean, they're right next door to Russia.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one of the things that was really striking, the history there is just always present. And it is amazing to me how consciously present the history is. So in every town we
Mm.
went into, so there were three of the Baltic states, we were in each of the capitals, and in every one of them, there were plaques and monuments and walks dedicated to the concentration camps there. There was a huge effort to ensure that we never forget our shame, really, right? And think of the contrast that we have here in the States. Like we're not gonna.
Oh yeah, here you
right?
you can outright just say, "Hey, here's a group of people. Let's put them in a camp."
Well,
As
but you
part
can
of a rally.
also say, let's scratch that from the history book because it's
Yeah.
making my child uncomfortable, right? So there was that was really very like
Mm.
I can't think of a healthier way to deal with your shame and your wrongdoing because they made some huge mistakes. Um, the other thing that was really fascinating that it just hadn't occurred to me, they have they have only had their freedom, their political freedom, since 1989. And when they're worried about the entire world shifting under their feet, they remember, right? And then it wasn't even, I think it was
No.
in the late 40s that the Soviet Union took over, right? And like I think in Lithuania, the guy that was doing the talk there was saying like in the past 400 years, Lithuania's been like ruled by I don't know 27 different like occupations just shuffled through this stuff
Whoa.
and like that's a very different place to view the world from. You know, we just think that big things, big changes, it's just never going to happen, right? I mean, we're going to wake up tomorrow and
Yeah.
it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
But if it's a slow little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The other thing this song made me think about is like now that I'm older, I'm now getting better at recognizing what's going on inside my head and what like looking as an observer at myself. So I think now I'm better positioned to, if I see myself kind of going down a path like this, I can be, okay. You know, a little more analytical, a little more just outside myself looking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, then maybe we should kind of try and counter those thoughts or
Yeah.
move in a different direction.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. This is good. What were you gonna say, Steve?
Well, I was just saying that kind of reflection. I think age it goes in two different directions. Either you learn to reflect and counter that stuff, or you become more and more consumed with it. It becomes kind of who you are.
You wear that path down in the groove.
The
Yeah.
narrative.
In that path, and you can't move the car out of those tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's C.S. Lewis is a Great Divorce, which is one of my favorites. Where you get to sort of sit in on
That's a good one.
these amazing conversations, and there's there's one where the George MacDonald character, his mentor in the book, says something along the lines of, uh, it creates this distinction between at some point there's this sinner, right? But at what point do they just become the sin? Like, or the grumble. I think in this case, it's referred to as a grumble. Like, you can grumble and grumble every day, but at some point, there is nothing there but a grumble. Like, you're a personified walking negativity. Like, who's left
Is
inside.
that the hardening of the heart?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that
Mm-hmm.
image of like there's nobody there anymore. It's just a grumble. And what are you going to do with that? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it just seems like there is a point, there's an atrophy that takes place where, sure, we all do this, right? And sometimes it feels great art, and sometimes it feels great careers, and sometimes it's a phase. But if you live in this space long enough, it will own you, and there's like nothing left to save, right? There's nobody there left to redeem. And it's really sad to think in those terms, but I think it's realistic. I don't think it's I don't think it's for us to make that call from the outside, right?
Right.
Because that gets dangerous too,
But we've seen it.
right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a
Yeah.
truth there that at some point there's just no coming back. But that's a kind of a warning call for me to keep an eye on that stuff.
Right.
Yeah. You tap into something there, Steve, too, where you become the thing. Um, there's a syncretism that can happen too, where when you begin, you have these two things separated. Like I think of like American nationalism, right? You can be proud of your country, like I should say Christian nationalism. You can be proud of your country and you can be a person of faith, right? But when these things become too enmeshed and you can't separate them out anymore, they become something that's neither Christian nor really American. It's uh, something that is different than both. And I don't want to try to define either one of those things too closely, but I think you know what I mean. Where when two things become too enmeshed, they actually uh, they lose their original identity and become a third thing, which is neither of those other two identities. And I think that's really problematic. It's not the same as what you were saying, but a similar sort of a thing, a similar sort of like hole that is easy to, I think, to fall down into. And that's just one example of
Yeah.
when those
Well,
two things
I
come
think
together.
kind of like what you're saying with what Steve said too is, yeah, those two things is like if you become what this negativity is, you're merging and you're no longer yourself.
Mm.
You're,
And both, if we go back even further to
Mm.
Bryan's comment, both sort of lack that ability to stand back and have perspective and see that thing happening, right? Because it's almost like
Yeah.
it's an echo chamber where one sort of just it's like a feedback loop, right? So the patriotism feeds back into this sort of hyper religious mindset, and it just gets trapped in there and becomes
Mm-hmm.
something very intense and I think very very harmful. Where there are other syntheses that are really pretty, like artistically, that can be really life giving and creative and lead to some amazing
Totally.
possibilities. But that has somebody driving it. That has somebody standing back and going, this is really interesting. I wonder what happened if you do this. And let's bring more people to kind of play. There's an openness there. And I think in what
Mm.
the Christian nationalism is a
there's a
very closed, cramped
yeah.
fever pitch that quite, and then add weapons into that mix, and it's scary.
I'm reading this book right now that my oldest suggested I read. It's called Finite and Infinite Games, or maybe Infinite and Finite Games. I'm trying to remember the. I think it's Finite and Infinite Games. But the idea is like with a finite game, like you were talking about playing board games or doing video games and stuff like that. There's an end to that sort of a thing, right? And it comes to a conclusion. But with an infinite game, you keep playing and you keep playing and you keep playing. Well, with Christianity and faith, that's an infinite game. It's a role that we put on, and it's a thing that we are constantly all throughout our lives working to sort of get closer to God and that sort of a thing. With patriotism for whatever country you belong to, that is also or can also be an infinite sort of a game. I'm a part of this community and I'm proud of this community and I want to invest in this community and make what's good. But when those things become too enmeshed, they become a finite game where someone has to win and someone has to lose, and you've lost the essence of both of those things. And and finite games on scale like this don't end well. So anyway, if you guys get a chance to read it, it's a fascinating book. It's not very long, but it's I think it might be it's interesting how it taps into this kind of conversation.
So does the book stay in the realm of games, or does it bleed out into some of the games we play as a society, some of the ways we think?
Yes, it goes
Hmm.
way out into culture and religion and all kinds of things, and then keeps looping back. It's about play, and it's about recognizing this idea of our lives as play. We play games, and some of them are finite, but we also play our life, right? And which is an infinite game in terms of how we experience it. It's finite in the sense that we're born and we die, but it's an ongoing sort of a thing that we play until we can't anymore. And we play professors, we play artists, we play husbands and fathers, we play
Hey, Matt,
all the things that the
I don't
three of us have
I
in common.
I don't know about you, but I am a professor. Okay, you might be playing. Let's just be clear
Yeah.
But when that becomes a finite thing and it's like you know what I mean? Like when
here.
something starts to control in a way, this is when we work so hard we forget to be a husband or a dad.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, this whole idea of play.
Balance. It's balance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's a fascinating book.
yeah.
It's worth a read. I think you guys would have fun with it. It's dense, I'll say that, but it's fascinating.
It's funny, Brian, because I'm thinking of like when you and I started the Huntington animation program. I mean, we were absolutely playing professors. Absolutely, right?
Oh,
Mm.
And actually,
yep.
the premise of the program we built was about play. Come play, right? Kind of still doing that.
Yeah.
And
I think it should be
oh,
that.
it should be
That's what
because
we're storytellers.
when it settles into the sort of like these rigid like now professor something I feel the need to protect. Oh, you're threatening my authority. And we saw a lot of that, right? We saw a lot of the inability to meet students where they're at because it seemed like there were these roles that people had become enmeshed in, and they were protecting territory and space. And we were,
Oh, and we stepped into that from the
oh
outside.
man, did we?
It was like, oh, who are these guys? And don't you know that this is this and this is this?
Yeah, it was like, no, and we're kind of glad we don't know. And then we would just play ignorant,
Yeah.
you know? But and as long as the program kept growing, the more we get away with it. So that worked.
Right.
But there is something to that rigidity of when definitions all settle in, these constructs that nobody knows the answer to. The human race has been making this up since we started, right? And that's part of the fun. And we know some things, we learn some things become outdated, but to treat this like a game really gives you some of that distance that and I even think like the gamesmanship of politics is a really healthy thing, you know. Even though there's some life or death consequences and there's a lot at stake, I really admire the political players that can play it well, as opposed to the hacks, or the power mongers or something really kind of.
Or the 100% cynical.
And then we have
Yeah,
100% cynical, yeah.
Like if you think of politics as like a chess game, it takes all kinds of thinking and strategy and stuff like this. And sometimes you have to give up your pieces in order to sacrifice some things in order to keep moving in a direction that you want to make. And that's strategy. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But when it's a zero sum game, when it becomes no longer, hey, we're just going to keep playing and enjoying the play,
when it becomes,
you can't give up any pieces.
Right. And when you can't bend, you can't, right? And that's one of the real difficulties with Christians now playing full on in the political landscape is that there's no give and take because God is on our side. We know that these are the things that have to be done and we will not bend. And yet the game of politics is this dance of working with people you don't agree with so that they'll work with you on things and you engage.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And that,
But if at the core of it, you just want to be seen, or you're trying to show somebody something, or get
compromise means promising. Compromising means promising together, but we think of compromise as like failure,
weak.
And it's like that's not even what the word means.
Only if you've been raised to think of the world in absolute terms. Right? If there's an absolute right and you happen to be on that side, then compromise is a sin and an abject failure. So hunker down and don't let those libs, right? Whatever. But and it happens on the left too. You see it on the left too. But this game of politics of how do all these different people exist in the same space and get along and actually progress towards something healthy and noble, and how do you not leave anyone behind? That's a fascinating game.
It sounds like socialism.
I think it can be all kinds of political landscapes. Because it's about communication. It's about communication, working together. I mean, for crying out loud, no one could ever get their way all the time. And if they did, who would ever want to spend time with these people? They would be like the jerkiest people you ever met, who only ever got their way. Like, golly.
Again, we're talking about Elon Musk. Why do you keep bringing him up, Matt?
Yeah, come on, Matt. Who wronged him at some point?
Yeah. Oh, well.
I don't know. One of his art teachers.
Yeah. You'll never amount to anything. You call that a truck, right? And
oh man.
Yep.
Oh. Right. Well, once again, we took a song and ran with it in lots of different directions. It's fun.
Who knows what
what they a good song.
Yeah. But no, it's a good point to jump off from. You are my inspiration, my muse, and I mean that not as a compliment. That's
probably not a slogan we're going to paint on the walls of our of our classrooms.
Come on, there's people you've wanted to say that to. Hey, if you've become a way for somebody to cruise through their writer's block, maybe that's a good thing. Or maybe it's the end of the world.
Until the rivers are running red and
Yeah.
Whew. All right. Well, thanks, guys.
All right.
That was awesome.
Well, thank you. It's been fun.
Thank you, man.
We'll do it again.
All right.